Hey, welcome to the seminar. I'm excited to have you here. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to get settled in, and while you do that, I'm going to give you a couple tips to get the most out of this presentation. So the big thing is get rid of any distractions. Close any tabs you have open, turn off your cell phone, get something to take notes. If that's pen and paper, that's great. If you want to take notes on your computer, but I'm going to give you a ton of information. Set aside the next 60 minutes. All right, I may even go over 60 minutes, but there's a lot of content, but I'm going to try and go fast. I'll try and get through it for you, but it's going to be a lot. So be ready to take notes, be ready to learn a ton. All right, with that said, I'm going to assume you're ready. Let's dive in. So what are we talking about? We're talking about advanced game. And what are you going to learn? Well, first we're going to start off with some big picture stuff. Mindsets that you want to have, inner game, which if you don't know what that means, it means the way you think about yourself, women, life, the world. Macro level perspectives, big picture ideas of game. Then we're going to go into some pure hardcore outer game. What outer game means is what you actually do. A, B, C, do this, say that. They'll kind of like pick up lines idea. And lastly, I'm going to show you exactly how to actually execute. Okay, this is not armchair theory. I want you to take what you learn here. I want to go take action in the real world with it. And what I'm teaching you here is a process that I've used consistently to take students from intermediate to advanced over almost 2 decades. It's worked for thousands of students, live students, online students, so I know these things work. Now, who is this for? And maybe more importantly and more specifically, what should you be trying to get from this presentation if you're at various levels in game? Well, if you're a newbie, welcome. At this point for you, game probably feels kind of difficult. You're probably focused on what we call beginner issues, things like approach anxiety. You're probably lacking in confidence. You probably have seen and heard so much pickup information, you probably don't even know what to trust. It's probably a little overwhelming. And game is definitely hard as a beginner. An advanced game probably seems like it's far away, but don't despair. Many have come before you through this journey and have succeeded at achieving advanced level game and getting the life and the dating life they wanted, including myself. I started out as a beginner. I started out very, very bad with girls. In fact, I probably started out worse than you are right now. So have hope. I'm going to give you a lot of great information here and a good glimpse of what is possible for you. Intermediates, you're in the right place. Now, being an intermediate is frustrating. I'm sure, right? You're getting semi-okay results here and there, but you know you want better quality, you know you want more consistency. As an intermediate, most likely you're working really hard, but you're not working smart, and that can be very, very frustrating in and of itself. Now, for the record, every intermediate is different, but there are definitely some common themes. And those would be, first of all, a rough and unrefined skill set. You're probably intimidated by hard sets. You probably do a lot of approaching, like a lot of numbers game type stuff. You likely do well with girls you'd consider 6s and 7s, girls you consider merely cute or even like below your standards, but you don't know how to handle the truly hot girls. And most importantly, you probably know you're stuck, right? Plateaus are common at an intermediate level. It's a fact. Most advanced guys have encountered plateaus as well. And in fact, overcoming them is what got them to advance in the first place. I don't know anybody who's gotten to advance without struggles and with like just a completely smooth sailing the entire way. The problem is intermediates typically don't know how to handle plateaus. And I'm going to show you, we're going to talk a lot about this later in the seminar. Then we have what I call semi-advanced guys. These are the guys that have put years into the game. You can get a 9 or a 10, but very sporadically, maybe like a couple times a year, something like that. And it almost seems random. It's like, it just like everything fell right, or maybe it seemed like you were her type or something like that. But it doesn't seem very predictable at all. And the funny thing with these guys that are semi-advanced is you're so close. It's not going to be major overhauls to your game. It's going to be some 5% adjustments that are going to make such a huge difference. We'll go into what some of these fine detail adjustments are later in the seminar. Before I go into a lot of technical stuff, though, I want to talk to you about what it's like to have advanced game. What does the promised land look like? And it's important to have this vision. So first and foremost, you're getting the results you want, right? And that's different for every guy. Every guy wants different results. But here's some common goals that you will probably achieve by reaching advanced. One is the quality of your girls that you are dating, sleeping with, seeing will go way up. Secondly, the quality of the relationships you have with those girls will go up as well, right? You'll have relationships more on your terms. If you want to have open relationships, multiple relationships, threesomes, if you want the girl to just really, really value you and treat you with respect in the relationship, all of that's going to come more and more naturally the more advanced you get. When you're advanced, you're going to have a real abundance mentality. And the reason I underline real here is that it's not just, you're just blowing smoke up your ass and saying like, I'm good enough, I'm hot enough, and gosh darn it, girls like me. It's that you have actual results to back up that mentality, right? So you have abundance of girls and an abundance of beliefs. Sex should appear to just happen, both in the sense of it's happening often and in the sense of it doesn't seem like a big deal. It doesn't seem forced when it does. And game is fun. When you're advanced, game is really, really an enjoyable undertaking. When you're advanced, it's a foregone conclusion that something good will happen. It would be extremely rare to go out and not have good things happen. It'd be extremely rare to go out and not like either pull a girl or get a bunch of solid numbers or get a lot of like good progress, etc. So it's every session really is going to seem like you've achieved something pretty much. And you have real confidence. Again, this is based on evidence, not based on brainwashing yourself because you have the results to go with it. So all in all, when you're advanced, life is good. So that's what it feels like to have advanced game. But the real question, maybe the $1 million question is, how do you get to that level? And the answer is you have to re-examine your assumptions. You have to actually do things differently in game, all right? You're going to have to throw out some things that might have been you thought working for you. You might have been sure they're working. They probably aren't, all right? And this is not easy. And this is the reason most people don't do this, to examine what's working, to take risks, and to try new things when you're getting some semblance of results is very difficult. And this is a big reason why guys get stuck at intermediate levels and don't get to advanced. You have to build better instincts, okay? And we'll talk a lot about instincts in a little bit, but key point I want to make to you is that if game isn't an instinct for you, if game is something you have to think about and it doesn't come naturally, then under pressure in the field, it's not going to be there for you. So let me ask you a question. What does your game look like now? And I'm going to assume that you're actually going out and gaming. Tell me if any of these things ring a bell for you. First of all, it's likely your approaches feel a little bit forced. Maybe in the sense of you're forcing yourself to go over, you have approach anxiety, you don't really want to go. Or maybe in the sense that once you're in the set, it feels awkward. It feels like you're really like trying some clunky things. So one way or another, your approaches either before or during probably feel forced. Probably still have some approach anxiety, especially with girls you consider hot. Even if you've gotten to an intermediate level and you can approach normal girls, a lot of times you may be nervous around the hot ones. You likely have weird, awkward, or uncalibrated interactions. Here's a big one. It's a numbers game, right? Anything short of advanced, even if you're intermediate, game probably is a lot of a numbers game. A lot of I have to do a lot of approaches to get a result. Feels like you're waiting to find that yes girl, the girl who's just down, right? And often that's not the girl you want. And if we're being honest, really, what are the odds that the one girl who decides she wants to go home with you happens to be the hottest girl that every guy wants? It's just unlikely. It's more likely it's going to be a girl that's not of the quality you really desire. And this is a huge one. If you're anything less than advanced, beginner, intermediate, you probably are chasing the girl. That's basically the definition of what intermediate game is basically chasing, right? And interesting point here, a lot of intermediates actually do chase really, really well. I call it high-level begging, right? And so what happens is you're chasing the girl and you're being charismatic, you're being cool, you're even solving problems sometimes relatively well and passing shit tests. But the problem is if you're chasing well, you're still fundamentally chasing and the girl has the upper hand, and that's a huge problem in your game. Most likely, you have no real method to your game, aka what goes by the name of natural game these days, right? Basically, what this means is, go out and self-amuse, go out and try and like convey some attractive qualities, but you don't really have a framework for when it is going well, what you should do next, or when it's not going well, what you should do to get it back on track. And in particular, you probably make a lot of mistakes related to escalation, right? Most of the key mistakes guys make are escalation mistakes. So let's talk about those. Big point on escalation is that there are actually 3 ways to escalate. You can escalate verbally, making the conversation either more sexual, more intimate, or more personal between you and her. You can escalate physically, which is the way most guys think of, or you can escalate logistically, meaning moving the girl around from place to place. The problem is, most guys just think of escalation as physical, and that's probably the least important of the 3 types of escalation. So most likely you're trying really hard to escalate physically and not escalating enough verbally or logistically. And most likely the escalation moves you are actually doing are not optimal or not well calibrated. So those are huge mistakes that intermediate guys make and beginners as well. And probably in your game, you're losing out on a ton of sets and probably you're giving up on a bunch too. There's probably a lot of interactions that are still going sort of okay, but you just don't see a way to make it happen. And so you kind of quit or give up. But eventually, one approach works. You get lucky often enough, right, especially at an intermediate level, or the semi-advanced guys in particular. So you get lucky often enough and it reaffirms your method, right? You're like, oh, well, this is working. But it's really hard work. It's not a lot of fun most of the time, and it's wildly inconsistent. And again, probably you're getting a quality of girls that you're not really exactly proud of or happy with. So overall, you know you can do better, but here's the problem, right? You can't visualize another way. Think about that for a second, right? If you have this idea of what kind of works, but it's not working very well, but you can't see an alternative, well, it's very scary to get rid of what's already sort of kind of working to go off into like the wild unknown, right? So what I'm going to do for you in a second is I'm going to give you that visualization of what that other way is. But yeah, when you can't see that other way, it is painful. So let's paint that picture of where we're going. And I want you to compare this with the intermediate style. If you're gaming at an elite level, game is easy. It's just less work. Like you're physically burning less calories, you're trying less hard, you're putting in less effort on so many different levels. You probably know the answers to most common situations because you've been there before. And even when you arrive at unfamiliar situations, you'll be comfortable and things will make sense because you'll understand the principles and you'll be able to draw on past experiences to come up with new solutions very, very easily. When you're advanced, being attractive is a permanent part of who you are. It's not something you have to think about, right? You act without hesitation. In fact, a lot of times it may be harder not to approach than to approach. There may be situations where it's inappropriate to even flirt with a girl, and you catch yourself flirting and have to be like, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, because it's become such a habit and such an instinct, even on the hardest sets. And this is very key. I'm talking like group sets that have the hottest girls, sets with like guys in them. Advanced guys know what to do with these sets. Advanced guys have the confidence to try these sets, and that makes a whole other world of girls available to them. As an advanced guy, conversations are always emotionally relevant. Platonic is just not in your vocabulary. And I don't use the word always loosely or lightly, right? If you know any of my my content, I say don't use the words always and never. This is one situation where I'm going to actually say always. So much so, I have an exercise I do with my students sometimes when I'm working with them live. We do a challenge. I say, I'm going to try and make the conversation man to woman. You're going to try and make the conversation platonic. It's impossible for them to make the conversation platonic, okay? So it's impossible for you to be friend zoned. It's impossible for you to be overlooked as a man. At an advanced level, you start to minimize your mistakes. You're in control of each moment in the interaction because you have skills. Now, when I say in control, that doesn't mean like literally the girl has no choice in anything or that like girls being forced or weird stuff like that. What you're in control means, it means that whatever situation arises, you have a clear idea of where you're at, you have a clear idea of solutions, and you're emotionally like in a good spot to effectively use those solutions. At every moment, you're going to be effective at doing the best thing in that interaction. And you're fully calibrated to the girl. This is absolutely huge, right? You understand the girl in front of you. You're gaming her, not just some random idea of a girl. And you're not just gaming some theory that you read on the internet, right? You understand her blueprint. You understand what's valuable to her, who she is, what her hopes and dreams are, what she wants in a man, those kind of things. Frankly, you're a fucking cool guy. And it's clear to anyone that the girl is chasing you. And this is almost the definition of advanced, is that obviously, aside from just getting the results you want, is the actual definition. But the secondary definition on a qualitative level is that if the girl's chasing you in most of your interactions, you're probably advanced. And last but not least, and this is critically important, it's all an instinct. Okay? If you remember one thing from this presentation, remember this. Advanced game is an instinct. You don't have a skill until you have it when it's under pressure and without thinking. All right? So if when you're shit tested by a really hot girl, you forget how to pass a shit test, you don't have the skill or the instinct of passing a shit test. Does that make sense? You don't have that skill until it comes out naturally in the moment under pressure. So if game is hard work, you're doing it wrong. All right? And this is why getting to advanced isn't as easy as getting to intermediate, and it's just different. Okay? You're actually rewiring bad instincts and replacing them with good instincts, which is very hard for most guys to do. It does take time. So the question again, another one of those like very critical questions, how do you get better instincts? Well, let's start with how you don't. We know that more action plus a direct premise plus some inner game, right? Doing a lot of sets, making sure that you're showing interest in the girl in those sets and having some level of confidence, that leads to intermediate results. That's how you basically go from beginner to intermediate, right? Advanced game is not more of that. If you do more of that, you're just becoming more cemented in your intermediate ways. You might become a slightly more efficient version of intermediate, but you're not going to get to advanced with more of the same. And the truth is, getting to advanced isn't actually harder, but it is different. Now, it's true that intermediate guys have different sticking points. Absolutely, that's true. That said, there are several things that the vast majority of intermediate guys, almost all of them, are missing. So let's go through what they are. First of all, missing skill sets. Secondly, missing instincts. And then thirdly, bad habits. And all three are related, right? So if you have some bad habits, it's hard to build instincts. If you're missing skill sets, it's hard to build those into instincts because what are you building in instincts, etc. So they're all related. What do you focus on? Well, three things. First of all, advanced skill sets, as opposed to a spray and pray approach. Instead of thinking like, I'm going to get better at game by just doing a lot of approaches, try and hone in and make each and every approach as effective and efficient as you possibly can. Next, eliminating leveling. All right, we'll talk a little bit later about what leveling is. We're actually talking in some depth about that. But leveling essentially is when you're conveying low-value behaviors, or you're conveying a behavior that tells the girl exactly what level you're at as a guy, tells the girl exactly how cool you are. So what eliminating leveling really means, it means actually being cool rather than faking it. And again, we're going to talk about how to do that later on in this presentation. And then also, work on problem solving and calibration. We're going to talk a lot more about that later on as well. So let's start with skill sets. Intermediate guys are defined by a lack of skill, as compared to advanced guys is one of the biggest differences. And to an extent, it's not even your fault if you don't have these skills, because a lot of what's taught in game will get you to that intermediate point, i.e. natural game. Go, be somewhat self-confident, don't give a fuck, self-amuse. You're conveying some attractive qualities, but it's really all over the place, right? You're not learning real skills that way. And so what happens is you develop a crude, simplistic approach that works kind of sometimes sort of on simple sets, i.e. the layups, i.e. the girls that you're not that into, right? Advanced guys, by contrast, have an optimized method to game. It's comprised of a structure to their interactions. They know at any given point, here's where I am, here's what I need to do next, and here's where I'm going, right? You have a game plan throughout. And this structure is so important that I actually built a whole course on this. It's a course I call The System. So this is actually something I focus a lot on. But advanced guys, once they have the general structure down, then they add the skills in to make that structure more effective. So I'm going to teach you 4 skills. And I want you to note there is a lot more where this came from. Again, there's tons more inside The System, for example, and other resources. But these are the outer game skills that are my favorite game multipliers. These are the things that when you teach this to someone, it makes their game jump up incredibly, incredibly fast from personal experience. And these are skills you may have heard of before, but do you actually know how to use them? And again, by using them, I mean, are they instinctual? Can you use them under pressure when the chips are down? All right, so the first skill is flipping the script. Let me ask you a question. What percentage of your interactions are platonic? Are you getting man to woman most of the time, or are you getting friend to friend? All right. Again, when you're advanced, sexually charged conversations are completely automatic. Beginners and intermediates, not so much. I literally don't think about making things sexual anymore. It just happens. But here's the thing. It's not just that I'm making things sexual. It's this. I'm getting her to chase in the process by flipping the script. All right. Check out this video clip as an example. Are you trying to get me drunk and take advantage of me?
Yeah.
Well, so I want you to know that drunk or not drunk, I do find you attractive, but like, I don't want to wake up like, missing a kidney or something, so.
Oh, do I look like that kind of person?
Oh my God, you have no idea.
I think I would be a little bit more sleeker if I was.
You'd be how slick?
Slicker.
Slicker? You're so slick, are you kidding?
I would be like, more like, I don't know.
You do this?
Yeah, I would be
Because
like
that would be the number one thing that would make me not trust you.
What?
You look very ridiculous and adorable.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm adorable. So are we going or what's the deal?
Sure, let's go. Actually, I was going to call a Lyft, but fuck it, let's just take a taxi.
Okay.
Better. I'm not a big fan of waiting, so yes.
Yeah. Wait.
So, advanced guys don't chase. They get chased. And they do it by flipping the script. Making things sexual, but doing it in the right way. So let's talk about showing interest, or what's often referred to by the term intent. All right? So it's necessary. It's necessary to let the girl know this is a man-to-woman interaction. It's necessary to, on some level, convey that there's some sexual interest on your part. But it can be damaging, right? And so most beginners and intermediates are stuck with either being super direct, like just saying, like, I like you, you're hot, which gives all their power away, right? So you're making it directly sexual in this crude way that gives away all your power. And this repels women, especially the hottest women who are used to being hit on, and even hit on by guys that are confident enough to show some intent. Or If you're so afraid of giving away your power, then you end up with the opposite, which is completely platonic, indirect approaches, which leads to either going home alone or being friend-zoned, right? So either you're very direct and you give all your power away, but you've made it man to woman, or you're completely indirect and you never get to the point and you get friend-zoned. That's very common. The better solution is something that, instead of interest or intent, I call it premise. And the idea of premise is this. When you have premise, that means that if something happens, it will be sexual. However, there's no guarantee that anything will happen, right? So the idea with the girl is like, if we were to get together, it would be a sexual relationship, but I'm an abundant guy. I have a lot of choices. I just met you. We won't necessarily get together. You still have to win me over. But if you win me over, it will not be as friends. It will be sexual. So that's the idea, right? If something happens, it'll be sexual, but it's quite possible nothing's going to happen. And so flipping the script is all about how the man-to-woman premise is conveyed. It's not just that you're making it man-to-woman, it's how is it conveyed. And if it's done the right way, instead of you chasing her, she's going to be chasing you. All right? So the girl falls into the frame, she's chasing. And unfortunately, this isn't natural for most guys, but it is a skill that anybody can learn. This wasn't natural for me when I first started out. And in order to help you implement this skill, I have a couple techniques I'm going to share with you. So the first technique is the push-pull. And you may have heard of this technique before. Basically, the push-pull is where you do show interest, but along with that interest, you take something away, right? So you show interest and disinterest kind of at the same time. So for example, you can take almost any intentful statement, almost any compliment, and turn it into a push-pull. So you're really cute would be an intentful statement that gives your power away. You'd be really cute if you weren't such a dork is a push-pull that has some tension around it. Right? Or I really like you would be very obvious, blatant, giving your power away. Right? On the other hand, a push-pull with some tension might be like, I'm trying so hard to not like you right now. Right? So you're not saying you like her, you're saying you're tempted to like her, but there's still tension around it. Right? So there's a positive with a negative. Okay? So this is the idea of a push-pull. Next one is premise in the negative. So here what you're going to do is you're going to show interest by the fact that something's on your mind, but you're actually bringing it up in the negative, so it's not actually giving your power away. So instead of like, I would like to, date you, right? You'd be like, girl, you are never going to get me on a date if you keep talking that way, right? That's premise in the negative. Or another one is like, maybe you're having a moment with a girl and you're thinking you might kiss her, and an intermediate guy might be like, can I kiss you? Which would be very much giving your power away, very obvious. Whereas an advanced guy might look at her and kind of give her a look up and down and be like, I'm not going to kiss you right now, right? And that conveys all the same things, but again, it's with a lot more tension, a lot less of your power being given away. Next one is implied premise, and this is where we're getting really subtle. But some examples of this would be just teasing at all, even if it's not in a man-to-woman way. The fact that you put enough effort into the conversation to tease says you're at least a little bit interested. Or, for example, introducing yourself. If you just say, hey, I'm Todd, early on in an interaction, that implies that the interaction will continue, that there's a reason why you want to know each other's names, i.e. you may know each other in the future. Now, neither of these alone are enough to make it man to woman, but they're a start, right? They're a start to moving that direction, and they're a good start to kind of, if you do this early on in the interaction, it goes well, it gives you kind of a green light to make it more man to woman later. So this is implied premise. Again, it's too subtle to be the only thing you're going to do, but it's a good starter for premise. Okay, but again, the idea behind all this is that you're showing interest, but without giving your power away. Next skill I want to share with you, disqualifiers and validation. Let me show you a video for this.
Like off again, on again, really bad.
It'd be so weird.
Toxic and shit.
Weird. Yeah. I'd be like, Todd, I don't even know him anymore.
Yeah. Well, that'd be weird if my name was Mike, you called me Todd. That'd be fucked up.
Sometimes you make jokes.
Are you gonna do that to me? Yeah. We'll have like the most like bed-busting sex. You'll roll over and be like, Mike, that was amazing.
So the point here, advanced guys can walk away, right? And this is a massive turn on for 9s and 10s because it's an honest signal of real abundance. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about honest signals later on, but essentially it means that it's real and can be trusted, right? It means that it's something that's very hard to fake. And the fact is that most guys are too afraid to push a girl away, right? Especially when you meet that really hot girl that you're like, oh, I finally found this girl I like, it's kind of going well. Most guys like cling to that like the jaws of life. What you want to be doing actually is being willing to push them away because that actually will make you stand out. I want to talk a little bit about female psychology and the power of validation, right? Think of it this way. For girls, social status is actually a matter of survival. And this goes back to when we lived in small tribes. But if a man was isolated on his alone away from the tribe, he could maybe survive. He could maybe even pass his genes along somehow. For a woman, they're going to be, if they're pregnant, they have 9 months of being fairly incapacitated, and then they have a few years of having this very dependent, needy thing that's loud and a huge like survival liability, right? So actually, like having a kid without a tribe is basically death for a girl, right? So they need the validation of the tribe, and what this means is, in a social situation, when a girl feels like she's lost approval or feels like she's lost social status, she's going to react very, very strongly to get it back, almost on the level of a survival type of a thing, okay? And so when you push a girl away, you're actually triggering that desire for her to validate herself. And 9s and 10s very rarely experience being devalidated. They very rarely experience not having social acceptance. So again, this makes you stand out. And the key here is that actions speak louder than words, right? And why is that? It's because of honest and dishonest signals. It's very, very easy to fake words. You can say whatever, but actions are a lot harder to fake. So they're treated as much more trustworthy and much more genuine. And so teasing is helpful, but it's a relatively weak signal, right? Walking away is stronger because it can't be faked, and also because it's a risk. When you walk away, you are risking the entire interaction, right? If you do walking away wrong, you could ruin the whole set, but that's exactly why it's an honest signal and why it's powerful. And that brings us to disqualifiers. Disqualifiers are verbal takeaways. So it's more honest than teasing, right? It's actually an honest signal, but it's way less risky than walking away. And this is why you'll see me use tons and tons of disqualifiers in my approaches when I'm talking to girls, because they are so effective, but they're also low risk relative to how effective they are. And here's a key point. The girl can never really chase you if she knows she has you. If you're unwilling to disqualify her, if you're unwilling to walk away, she can't really chase you because, there's nothing to chase. There's no distance created in the interaction. All right. Next skill I want to talk about for advanced guys is conveying value and status. And again, you want to convey this without bragging, right? And here's an interesting thing. So just like you rate girls on appearance, or it's common to rate girls on appearance, 1 to 10, how hot are they? Girls tend to rate guys on value and status. So if you're a 7 value-wise, it's easy for you to get a 6. And that's what intermediate game is. It's not messing things up and getting the girls that you're supposed to get, right? So if you're, if you're getting girls that are at your standard or below, you can do that with intermediate game. But with intermediate game, it's nearly impossible to get a 10 if you're at a lower status. It's hard to get those girls that are out of your league. That's what advanced game is. And the fact of the matter is that 10s want other 10s. So if the girl's a 10, she wants a guy that's a 10, right? And so advanced guys are experts at conveying their value and status. And if you've seen my infield, this is a huge part of what I'm doing when I'm talking to girls and when I'm interacting with girls. So again, one of those $1 million questions, how do you increase your value? Well, let's look again at honest signals. And as an example, is bragging an honest or dishonest signal? Well, it's a dishonest signal of value because you saying that you're good at something or you saying that you're cool, that anybody can make that brag. Anybody can make that statement. There's no, first of all, you have an incentive to do it. You have a clear outcome of making yourself elevated status. And secondly, there's no verification, right? So it's a dishonest signal of value, but it is an honest signal of neediness and self-qualifying. It's an honest signal of trying hard and trying to impress. So on net, it's going to make you seem less attractive rather than more attractive. But if you can't brag, how else can you convey your attractive traits? Well, here are some ways. First one is social proof. Social proof basically means when someone of high social status or when a group of people that have some status vouch for you. So for example, if when you meet a girl, you're already with another girl who's attractive, it's assumed that you are attractive to attractive girls. It's assumed that you are vouched for. Or, for example, if a girl knew you were friends with a celebrity, that means you're vouched for. That means maybe you know some people that have some clout. You would be perceived of as a little bit better. Also, maybe if you're a performer on stage or a DJ at a club, it's another form of social proof because people paid to be there and see you and people are reacting to you. So those all elevate your social status. Next, slightly similar but different to social proof, not quite as strong but very good, is third-party confirmation. And this is maybe when it's not a super high-value person doing it, but someone besides yourself is confirming that you're high value. So instead of you bragging about yourself, what if you have a friend that tells this girl cool things about you? Well, now your friend appears to be more of a neutral party. He doesn't have as much incentive to lie as you would, and so it's trusted a little bit more so. Better would be if her friends told her something about you, or if she was able to verify facts about you or find a website or find social media that confirms that you're a cool person, that you have a cool life, right? So this is third-party confirmation, and this is a lot more trusted, a lot more honest than when you just say something yourself. Next method is accidental discovery. So if she just happens upon a fact about you, that's pretty useful. So contrast two situations. Situation one, you walk up to the girl and the first thing you do is tell her you have money. Well, that's bragging and that's going to make you look kind of lame. On the other hand, let's say you have a good interaction with a girl and then as you're leaving wherever place you met her, you have like a driver show up in like a Rolls Royce and drive you to a mansion. Well, you didn't tell her you're rich. You just happened to be rich and have the money and she figured it out by accident. That's a lot more powerful than you telling her that. Another more subtle example of this might be for, instead of like trying to show her a photo of you traveling and doing a cool thing, maybe you're showing her just photos in your phone in general and you just happen to flip through and scroll through and you can't help but show it by accident. Again, because it doesn't appear like you intentionally tried to brag, it is taken as a much more honest signal. Another one is inadvertent mention. So this is when you brag in a story, but the brag is necessary for the story. So let's say, for example, I was telling you a story about a crazy experience I had in the south of France. Now, as an American, it's kind of a statusy thing to have traveled and to have traveled to that part of the world and that sort of thing. But instead of being like, hey, I travel a lot and I have a cool life, instead I tell you a cool story that only makes sense because part of the story maybe was that the guy couldn't understand me because I didn't speak French, right? So now I've conveyed to you I traveled to the south of France without saying I'm travel and I'm very cool. So this is something that came up by accident in the conversation. Again, treat it as more honest than if you tried. And then the final one is the humble brag, if you can do it well and if you can pull it off. The idea of the humble brag is instead of telling how amazing you are, you actually tell how lame you are. But the context around it conveys for you that you are amazing. All right. So one that I do actually that's pretty good for the humble brag is say I meet a girl who speaks Spanish. Now I speak really good Spanish myself. And it's a huge value for the girl that I'm a American white boy who can speak their language. But usually if a girl asks me if I speak Spanish, I'll say to her, no, I'm a dumb gringo. I don't speak any Spanish at all. But I'll say it in really perfect Spanish with a good accent that clearly says I am good at Spanish, right? But I'm not saying, yes, I'm very good at Spanish and you'd be impressed. Instead, I'm saying, no, I'm not that good. I'm just like a white boy. But I let my Spanish speak for itself, right? So that's an example. Another one would be if you've clearly been very smart and witty in the interaction and you just say, nah, I'm just some dude. I'm not that smart. You're playing down the intelligence, but the interaction speaks for itself. And you bring just emphasis to the question of whether you're intelligent, just points out what she already knows, which is that you have that trait. So that can be another way to point it out. That's a more honest signal than if you're trying to brag. All right? So now let's talk about leveling. Because this is probably the biggest reason if you're intermediate or semi-advanced why you're not getting quality. Right? And leveling is an honest signal. And here's why leveling is so confusing and difficult to deal with. So to a 6 or a 7, if you're a 7.5, and again, we're talking on status, she'll probably love you, right? She'll probably love you for it because you're higher value than her, so you're a win for her. Also, you're within a range where she actually believes and trusts that you might stick around and you might like her for a genuine reason. So she'll probably absolutely love you for being a 7.5, and she'll love you for any behavior that says you're a 7.5. But to a 9 or a 10, she'll instantly tell you're a 7.5 and she'll lose interest because she doesn't want to date a guy who's a 7.5. So the exact same thing that could work and actually really help you tremendously in your game with a girl of lower caliber can immediately make it almost impossible for you to get a girl of a higher caliber, and that's the issue with leveling, right? So to get a 10, you have to behave like a 10. Now, hopefully you understand the concept here, but leveling is something probably best understood through examples or best taught through examples, so I'm going to give you some leveling examples. First leveling example, asking the girl for a kiss. Right? So this is something that beginners and intermediates do. In fact, if you're a beginner and you're scared of kissing a girl, asking her for a kiss can be a good start just to get over that fear. But what does asking a girl for a kiss say about you as an advanced level guy? Well, it says, first of all, you're calling attention to the fact that game is going on or that you have desires and you're needy in some way. And you're making her say an overt yes as opposed to having things just happen. So you're making things a lot clunkier. Right? You're also indicating that you're maybe uncomfortable with physical escalation, uncomfortable with girls in general. So it's one of those things that says you're not a low-value guy that's too scared to ask for a kiss, but you're not a high-value guy for whom kissing would just be an implied thing and just happen. Next one is being socially uncool or not being part of her world. So say, for example, you're talking to a girl who's like a socialite. She goes to all the best clubs. She knows the best scenes, that kind of stuff. And she asks you what your favorite club is. And let's say you say a place that's pretty lame. You say a place that's not at all exclusive, gets kind of a bad crowd, etc. Right in that moment, she's immediately lumping you into the category of the guys that go to that kind of place, as opposed to the guys she perceived as her caliber. And right away, she's automatically going to lose a lot of interest in you. Next would be awkwardness of any kind, but in particular, awkwardness with regards to sexual escalation or escalating with women, right? Because if you're awkward around women, what does that convey? It conveys you probably haven't had a lot of girlfriends, which means probably girls haven't found you attractive. So if you've had a lot of girls chasing you in life, if you've had a lot of opportunities with girls, you're probably smooth, you're probably not awkward, you're probably confident and calm under pressure. So showing awkwardness can be a very leveling trait, a very, very low value showing trait. Now, the funny thing is the reason awkwardness is leveling rather than just bad game is that at a certain level, just understanding that situations are awkward at least shows some level of calibration. So it's not entirely bad in every way, but it's usually more bad than good. Next one is lacking real confidence and then overcompensating with overly bold behavior. So like fake confidence. So for example, let's say you walk over to a girl and you're kind of nervous, you don't really know what to say to her, and so you decide to just be really bold and you decide to say something like, hey, so yeah, I noticed you were checking me out, so I thought I'd come over here and like give you a shot at me, right? That's just like obnoxiously bold. It's just like way, way, way over the top, especially with that kind of tone of voice or that kind of challenging delivery. It's kind of lame. Now, at least you're being confident, at least you're doing the approach, and at least you're taking on a positive frame. But your framing is so obvious and so kind of tacky that for a girl with any kind of social calibration, she's going to see through it and see you as kind of like a mediocre guy. Final one as an example I'm going to give you is not understanding the girl or not understanding women in general. So a good example here would be when girls go out to a nightclub, a lot of times they wear uncomfortable shoes because they want to look good. And a lot of times their feet hurt at various times throughout the night. And if you've been out with a lot of girls as friends or dated a lot of girls, you would know this. You would be familiar with this phenomenon, and so you'd understand, like when a girl's sitting down, you'd understand when a girl says her feet hurt, you'd get it, right? But if you seemed oblivious to that or you seem to not be familiar with that idea, then that would convey you haven't been around a lot of girls before, which means you're not attractive to girls, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is kind of leveling in that it shows negative social proof, right? So again, not really a high-value trait. All right, so how do you identify leveling? So I just gave you some examples, but that's by no means an inclusive list. So there are 3 questions you can ask yourself. First question, am I putting on a persona? Am I acting differently than myself inside? Am I doing something and putting on a mask or a fake personality in order to impress? Next, would I act this way with a friend? Or if you like, would I act this way with a girl that has had a crush on me and I know I can have her? And the next is, am I relying on gimmicks? So instead of just trusting yourself and trusting that you're good enough, are you trying to use the same little line every single time or the same little routine every single time? If you are, you're probably using it in inappropriate situations. You're probably leaning on it very heavily, and it's going to be a bit of a leveling behavior. So how do you correct leveling? So first of all, ask yourself those questions. Am I putting on persona? Would I do this with a friend or a girl I know that I know she likes me, or am I using a gimmick? That's the first thing, is ask that question. But next you want to correct your low-value mentalities. And how do you correct low-value mentalities? Well, there's really 3 ways. The first is to know that they're not real, right? So you want to have knowledge of the reasons you are high value, and you want to have a belief system, an idea that you are a high-value person, right? So you want to cultivate that belief system, look for reasons why, and look for confirmation in the real world as why, so that you build up that knowledge of why you're high value and that frame your high value over time. As you're doing that, I suggest you fake it till you make it. Start acting a little bit high value. Start acting in ways that are a little bit risky for you. And what will happen is you'll get tested, right? So if you act a little overly bold, you're going to get tested, and that's fine at first because you're going to learn how to pass those tests. You're going to learn how to live up to those traits you're trying to convey, and that's going to help you to get there. It's going to help your learning curve. And then finally, you're going to get experience. The more experience you have of successful interactions with hot girls, the more interactions you have of problem-solving things successfully, passing shit tests, that's all going to make you more calm, make you feel less desire to use gimmicks, less need to put on a persona, etc. And so in the long run, it just becomes who you are. You become a high-value guy, right? So you want to eliminate your persona. You want to eliminate chasing tendencies. And if you catch yourself trying to impress or caring a lot about what the girl's thinking about you, that should be like a little light bulb to go off to be like, wait, am I acting normally right now? But one of the best things to do to correct leveling is having someone honestly break down your game. Ideally, someone who's better at game than you. So if you're lucky enough to have a friend who's good at game and he can help you out, that's good. Even better is a mentor or a coach, having someone who's been there before and can see leveling behaviors. Because a lot of the things you're doing that are leveling you, you're probably not aware of. And even if you saw them, you might not be aware of them. Like even if you watched yourself on video and saw it with perfect vision, you might not even know the concept behind it. So finding someone more advanced is huge for getting through leveling. Finally, another advanced skill I want to talk to you about is pulling. Right? I want to put this all together for you. And pulling is when the entire approach comes together to its perfect culmination. So you could look at pulling as the ultimate outer game skill. Funny thing is that pulling in and of itself isn't even that advanced as a skill. The thing is that you almost have to be at least semi-advanced to practice it, because most guys don't get far enough into the interaction to practice it. If you want to go practice opening, for example, you go open 100 girls and you can get reps. If you want to practice pulling, you have to get into an interaction where the girl likes you, and probably an interaction where you've been talking to her for at least a decent amount of time, like minimum probably like 15 or 20 minutes, oftentimes an hour or two, right? So it's harder to get practice at it, which is what makes it difficult. And most guys do not have a process for pulling. They just kind of hope. They just try and get the girl very attracted and then at some point be like, hey, so you want to come back to my place? Which is a terrible approach. You want to be methodical about this. You want to have a system just like everything else in game. So here are my 4 steps to pulling. First off, seed, which means basically like put into the interaction the idea that going somewhere together might happen. Frame, set it up in such a way that it's seen as a win for you and for her. Qualify, actually make her work for it or earn it as opposed to just giving it to her. People value the things they work for much more. And then finally, lead. Go with some confidence once you put in this framework of the previous steps. So let's go deeper into each of those steps. First of all, seeding is probably the most important and the most neglected because it's the first one and because it makes the rest exponentially easier. And what seeding the pull is just bringing up the idea of going somewhere without actually asking. So for most guys, like I said, you're trying to attract the girl, and the first time you bring up the idea of going somewhere is when you're asking. So talk, and then all of a sudden, hey, so you're going to get out of here and go to my place? It just drops like a ton of bricks. On the other hand, what if you were to bring it up earlier on in the interaction without it being an ask? So you're like, you know what, you're actually kind of fun to talk to. I wouldn't mind potentially hanging out with you later, but let's take it slow. Let's not do that yet. Right there, now you brought up this idea, this vision in her head of you and her hanging out, talking somewhere else, but you said it in a way as though it's not going to happen as opposed to that it is going to happen. So that could be a really good one. Another good one would be like, I'm not going to take you home tonight, right? So you're bringing up the idea of you taking the girl home, bringing up in the negative so it's not an actual request. If anything, she might be like, why not? And then you're really in business because now she's trying to prove to you that you might want to take her home. Next is framing and qualifying. And this basically is setting up what the pull is, right? Setting it up so it's a win for you and her. So if for the girl, the idea is this guy wanted to hit on me, he thought I was hot, I gave in to him and had sex with him, that's not a very good story for the girl to tell herself. That's not a high value story. That's not a very it's not a very romantic story. It's not great, right? On the other hand, if it was, there's this like cool guy and at first he didn't even like me, but I won him over and I convinced him I was cool. And then we just hung out because we enjoyed each other's company and one thing led to another. That's a much better sort of a story in her head, and it's going to help you tremendously. So framing it in a way that's a win for her as opposed to a loss, and qualifying the girl a little bit, having her feel like she earned it, is going to be absolutely huge. And then finally, leading. Once you have done these prior steps, you want to lead with confidence. You don't want to be hemming and hawing. You're going to be like, hey, okay, cool, I guess we can go. I'll get the taxi. You want to have confidence it's going to work. If you're hemming and hawing and asking permission and stopping and starting, it's not going to work very well. And a key here is most guys who teach pulling, they'll just teach leading, like just lead. That doesn't really work without the framework. And what that leads to is being pushy, getting a lot of pushback on her part, a lot of resistance. And advanced game doesn't have resistance. Again, as an advanced guy, you're getting her to chase you rather than the other way around. Okay, so just leading without the previous steps is a big mistake, but that's the one thing that most guys teach, right? So it's one thing to actually just talk about pulling. Let me actually show you a pull. And there's another clip I'm going to show you. By the way, all the clips I've shown you so far, the two and then this one as well, are from my program, The System. So check out this clip. I think you're going to enjoy it.
I'm gonna finish my drink and get the check. I'm gonna take you on a quick adventure, and then I guess we're meeting JP and your sister at Bodega in a little bit. So I'll take you on a quick adventure, and then we can go meet up with them. Okay? Sound good?
Yeah. I have to use the bathroom.
Me too.
Okay, good. Cool.
Yeah, let's both go. It's back that way, yeah? Why do you seem...
Staying at a hotel?
We're at like an Airbnb
Okay.
for the bed, so... Yeah. What? Come here. I like the way you touch me. It's very sweet. It is. Come here. Put them on that.
I don't want to like kiss you in front of people.
Really? Yeah. Right, and we saw this in JP said as well. She's like, I don't want to kiss you in front of other people. I don't want to kiss you in public. So a lot of this I'm a good girl resistance stuff, what's that really coming from? It's a lot of social perception, right? Doesn't want to do it in front of her sister, doesn't want to do it in public. But, you know, in a more private, more intimate setting, very different deal for her. And that could change from girl to girl. Like some girls, they don't give two shits about other people, but they may actually truly not, you know, be very sexually adventurous flat out. Other girls, kind of like this one, very, very common, they care a lot about the social judgment, but if you can get around the social judgment, a lot of good things will go your way. Fair enough.
I would, but I don't know you that well.
All right, we'll save our kisses for private, intimate
The
moments.
alleyways.
All right. So again, yeah, sexually inexperienced, kisses in alleyways. You decide. All right, are you adventurous? Okay, good. Earlier on, are you adventurous? No, I'm not. Are you adventurous? I am. See, that's interesting. Was she lying before or is she lying now? The answer is neither one, right? And so when I'm asking, are you adventurous, what am I actually asking? I'm asking, are you currently feeling and being your adventurous self? Because most girls have a very adventurous side and a very by the book, follow the rules side, right? And so earlier on when I asked her, are you adventurous? The answer no was correct. Now when I ask you, are you adventurous? The answer yes is correct. I'm glad you turned out to be so cool. Seriously. Like very, very, very glad. Like, I told you before I came here, I was like, not, like I'd barely slept, I was coming out all tired. I was like, I'm not sure if I would ever. No, I'm not, a little bit, but I'm all right. I promise you, I'm more witty than I've been tonight in general. Thanks. How you doing? We're gonna go to the Flamingo. It's like 1420 Bay. Thank you very much. You have to close it because otherwise it'll fly open in the middle of our ride and that'll be awkward.
Doesn't it like close by itself?
So there you have it. Sweet, innocent, sexually inexperienced girl. All of a sudden, you know, in the right frame, in the right light, given the right opportunity to not be judged, to enjoy herself, a lot of very good things can happen. All right, so there's a lot to digest in that clip, including a lot, if not all, of the things we've already talked about in this presentation. But what I want to focus on more than anything is this question. Why was that pull so effortless? And why is it that most guys have really clunky, awkward pulls, assuming they're pulling at all? What is the difference, right? Why is it that, you know, she's leading me to go do kisses in alleyways and taking the reins, whereas other guys are I feel like they're pushing and the girl's resisting the whole time? What's the difference? Well, it's a couple things. Big one is calibration. And calibration we're define as deep understanding of female psychology on an unconscious level, right? Knowing what she wants, knowing what she's comfortable with, knowing what she's not comfortable with. Like the example of like, when do I kiss her and when do I pull away, right? Or the example of like, how long should I spend with her before pulling? Should I be rushing things or should I be just letting them happen somewhat organically, right? Knowing her blueprint cold, understanding how she views herself, understanding what she wants in life, what she wants in a guy, those kind of things. And then knowing the blueprint of women in general. Because the fact of the matter is, women are actually way more similar than they are different. So if you know how to handle all women,
you'll have a good starting place for how to handle a particular woman as well. And knowing how she wants to be pulled. Again, we talked about, she cared a lot about like the social perception, right? So she's not too worried about like having sex or getting physical or kissing, but she is worried about it being in public, right? So interestingly enough, I can take her to a private place, and that's not something coercive on my part. It's problem solving what she wants. She actually wants to go somewhere private in this particular case, right? Understanding how and why she does what she does. And again, this is not like on paper or in theory, but when the girl's right in front of you, understanding in the moment why she's doing what she's doing and what the underlying motivation is. Like, what is this coming from in terms of her basic desires? And that is advanced game in a nutshell. But the question is, how do you build advanced instincts, right? And again, remember when we talked about instincts, it's not an instinct if you still have to think about it. It's only instinct if you have it under pressure when the chips are down in the moment. And the reality of building an instinct is it takes time. Sorry, I wish I could tell you there's a magic pill, it happens overnight, but it does take time because it's a habit, right? And habits take time and repetition. But here are some things that I do with my online coaching students to work on building these habits. So step one is identify the sticking points. Figure out what the specific instincts you want to create are and what your specific bad habits are as well. Step two, create a roadmap, right? Exactly where you are going and what is the next action step to get there. And then step three, once you have that roadmap, is to take purposeful action. Actions directed at getting you closer to mastery with every single step. And ideally, you're constantly pushing your comfort zone. At a minimum, though, you want to be constantly pushing your skill set, right? If you can push your skill set and comfort zone at the same time, then you're really doing well. And this is how you unlearn bad habits and create new instincts. Here's some other things that I have my students do that are very, very useful in terms of this kind of training. First off, no excuses. This is the first rule of my programs, no excuses. And actually having a coach there helps with this. To be completely honest, accountability helps. Having someone to push you, having someone that you know that if you don't do it, you'd be letting them down, having someone to give you a little bit of a kick in the butt when you don't do what you know you should, it is very, very, very helpful, right? Getting guys to actually take action in high-pressure situations. And this is what high-pressure situations are for you. So if you're a beginner, what's high pressure for you might be different than what's high pressure for an advanced guy. But again, you want to be pushing your comfort zone. And especially when it comes to your 10, right? Here's one mantra you should have is if you see a girl that is your 10, you see a girl that is absolutely your type, you must go approach her in some way. Even if she's surrounded by guys and the best you can do is talk to some of the guys and try and get a word in with her, at least try something. Figure out a way. Do not make excuses, right? Make that commitment that if you see a girl that's your type, you will not make an excuse. You will at least try something. That's the first step in learning really advanced game and getting those really hot girls. So here are some teaching methods that we use. First one is isolating certain techniques. So let's say that you're having trouble being man to woman as an example, right? We might isolate a particular technique like a push-pull or disqualifier and have you work explicitly to add some more of that into your game, right? Or say you're working on pulling, maybe we'd isolate the technique of moving the girl around the bar as a pre-pulling kind of a technique to get you building up to the full pull. So isolate a particular thing, very specific, they want you to add to your game. And that's very effective because you can work on that thing while still not changing a ton of your game and while still getting the success you've been having up to that point. So you don't have to like go backwards in order to learn. So isolating certain techniques is one. Next one is taking away techniques. And this sounds kind of funny. Why would you want to take away a technique? Well, there are two reasons. One is because it's an ineffective technique, right? So maybe it's a technique that you're doing by accident or out of habit that's not helping you. Like a lot of guys ask too many questions. So getting guys to not ask questions instead might be taking away a particular technique. And that's a pretty ineffective technique. The other reason you might want to take away a technique is because it's effective, but it's becoming a crutch. So let's say you have one particular gimmick to get you through something and it's a little bit try hard. Well, me and my coaches, we might make you game without that gimmick and give you some alternatives of ways that you could get through it. So you specifically can't do that thing until you learn to do it some other ways or learn to do it in a more a way that's going to help you more generally in game. And then once you're doing it effectively in other ways, you can re-implement that technique that is effective for you, right? And this is one of the things that intermediates never do. Intermediates, if they find something that works, they cling to it and cling to it and cling to it. They're afraid of giving it up. To get to advanced, you sometimes need to take away a technique that's working and learn some other techniques to either go along with it or to use instead of it. Next one is pushing interactions to the limit. Probably the best way to learn problem solving is to actually get into situations where you have a problem to solve. So if you want to learn to pull and you're every single time you talk to a girl just getting a phone number and leaving, you're never going to learn to pull because you're not putting yourself in the situation to solve those problems and make it happen, right? You need to be sticking around to the ends, trying to like take the girl back to your place, trying to get back to her place, etc. Right? You need to push it to the limit. You need to push it to the place that you're getting new experiences, you're getting new feedback to work with. And then finally, we have constant feedback loops, right? So what we'll do is we'll give a student an assignment, and then he'll go use that assignment in field. He'll go out, practice it, get in-field results, come back and discuss what happened, what went well, what went wrong, what can he learn from it, and then we'll have an adjustment and then a new assignment. So it's this constant feedback loop of theory and strategy from like a reputable source, someone who knows more than you, and then going out and trying it in the field, getting the experience, coming back, reevaluating, and re-implementing the strategy. Because why would you want to repeat the same mistakes for years on end? When you repeat mistakes, you want to get some feedback on them, end them, and get on to the next thing. And last but not least, pushing yourself to the fullest potential. Or more accurately, I suppose, having someone, i.e. me or a coach, push you to do more than you would have done on your own, or push you to be accountable to what you know is your best self. Because again, it's amazing how much more action someone will take when there's someone that actually gives them, a push and some consequence for not taking action. And last but not least, a point I want to leave you with, whatever you do in life, to be fair, but also especially in game, do not delay on your dreams. Don't be that guy that's like, oh, I'll learn game when it's convenient for me 6 months from now, or I'll learn game next week or whatever. Right now, you're motivated, you're on this program, do something. You want to get started, you don't want to delay getting better. Because for most people, later equals never. Right? But even to the extent that it doesn't, why would you want to wait to get good? Why wouldn't you want to start reaping the benefits as early as possible? Time is the ultimate currency. It's the one thing you can't get more of in life. So for some of you guys, this may be the end of the presentation. But for those who are dedicated, for those who really want to step up and get this handled, I have one more thing for you. So everything I've mentioned, you can do it on your own, or at least you can try and do it on your own. You can try and figure out your leveling behaviors. You can try and have these processes. You can try and get accountability on yourself. But there is a faster way, although it's not for everybody. And ultimately, you need to decide if this is for you or not, right? But since you've gotten this far, I'm going to make it significantly easier for you in a second. Now, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about coaching, because coaching is the ultimate shortcut, right? And the vast majority of guys who get to advanced do not get there on their own. I didn't do it on my own. Right? I had coaches, I had mentors, I had wingmen, and all of my coaches that work with me now, that have been coaching with me for years, they started out as my students as well. Right? It's very rare that someone will get to a high level, or especially an elite level, without someone giving them guidance, someone helping them along. But coaching only works if you're willing to do the work. Do not expect coaching to be easy. Right? Either way, you still have to put in the work. Coaching just makes the work exponentially more effective and efficient. It should make things less difficult for you. It should make things faster for you. But don't expect it to be like a total magic pill. All right? You have to actually execute on what's being taught. You have to be coachable, and you have to commit. Right? But that's how rapid transformation happens. So if you're ready to take a massive leap forward, and if you can recognize how coaching can help you to reach your goals significantly faster, I want to introduce you to my 90-day online coaching program. And yes, I do have an insane offer for you in a second. But first, what is the 90-day coaching program? Well, it's a 12-week online coaching program designed around you. It's about your goals, your sticking points, your progress. So it starts with a 1-hour orientation call with the program director so we can get into your goals personally. He's going to talk one-on-one with you, figure out where you're at, what your goals are, what your dreams are, what you're struggling with, what your lifestyle is like, what time you have available to work on game, all those kind of things, and iron out the best way to help you. You're going to be assigned to an elite level coach based on what you're focused on, right? So if you're focused on day game, get someone who does day game, night game, night game. You can work on online game, inner game, outer game, eliminating leveling behaviors, all those different things. We have coaches who specialize in every single one of those. And you're going to get 12 weekly one-on-one calls with your personal coach. And this is not just a coach. This is a guy who's going to be a mentor for you. He's going to help you out. He's going to help you grow in game. Now, my coaches, these are guys that have been with me for 4 to 7 years, typically. And they've all been coaching with me for at least a year. All right. So they have massive amounts of experience. They actively game. They've been teaching with me on immersion. They've taught one-on-one live programs. They're guys who I vouch for, and they're guys who pretty much all day, every day, they're doing game. All right. So these guys are very, very experienced and very, very good at what they do. And this is your personal virtual wingman. I've had situations where the student goes out in field and they literally have the coach on the phone directing them in field in between sets, even in set at times, right? So they're very on call for you. They're very on demand for you, and they want to get deeply into what's going on with you. They also, one of the most valuable things they can do is break down your sets. If you get your sets audio or video recorded, you can actually sit with them and they'll break down exactly what you should be saying, what you said wrong, what you did wrong, different things like that, decisions you should be making in set. And they're going to answer your questions. And again, I emphasize your questions, the specific questions, specific sticking points you have. You also get email and WhatsApp support with them during the week. So they're going to not only instruct you, but also give you a kick in the ass, give you personalized missions. On every single call, you're going to get a mission for what to do between that call and your next one. So what to do out in the field in between the calls. You have weekly accountability and goal tracking. In addition to that, you're going to have 12 weekly group calls with me. And these are very small groups so I can give personal attention. I take my time and I answer every single question. Sometimes I even extend the time for an hour or two beyond the normal amount each week. And sometimes I've even added extra sessions just to get to every single question. So whatever your question is, I promise you we're going to answer it. So that's the 90-day coaching program. It's regularly $24.97 for 3 months if you call in and sign up. But since you've made it this far, I'm giving you an end of summer limited time discount. And it's a pretty big discount that I reserve for my biggest fans, basically for guys who are clearly committed to learning. However, I am closing enrollment after it's sold out. And we have to do this because I only have so many coaches and they're doing a ton of coaching already. So once all the spots are filled, the offer is history. So once it's closed, you probably do not want to procrastinate. In addition, I'm going to give you a few bonuses that are not standard parts of the program, things you wouldn't get if you just called in to buy or just purchased online. So the first one is a free 1 hour one-on-one roadmap call with me. Basically, we're going to sit down and I'm going to talk to you about your history, your goals, your aspirations. We'll go through your skills you have. We may role play a set. I'll break down video footage of you or audio footage if you have it. We'll get to the bottom of exactly what it is you're working on and what you need to improve on. And then I'm going to design the full 90-day roadmap program for you personally. And then I'm going to also help with picking out the coach who will be the absolute best with you and giving them that roadmap to implement with you. So I will be kind of at the head of your 90-day roadmap. Next is the system. And the system is my complete step-by-step system for talking to girls, kind of my flagship online course. A lot of the videos, actually all the videos that I showed you in this presentation were from the system. It's over 30 hours of high-value content, including hours and hours of my infield sets and my entire framework to always know where you're at and what you need to do next in any interaction, and a whole lot more than that. And then the final bonus is one I've never offered before. This is my advanced pulling techniques masterclass. Basically, this is my in-depth guide to pulling. We talked about that 4-step process: seed, frame, qualify, and lead. I'll give you examples of all of it. And this is stuff I've never mentioned on YouTube, stuff I don't really talk about so much, you won't find it anywhere. So now is the time to make a decision. If you go to the URL on the screen, you can see how crazy this deal really is. Now, it's a pretty massive discount, and I don't take it lightly. But if you're ready to get to the next level, this should make it way easier and not to mention faster. However, there's a couple things you should know. First of all, this isn't going to last forever. There's limited capacity. And like I said, when it's done, it's done. Next up, we do have a 14-day money-back guarantee. So from the time that you have your first call with your coach, meaning you've already had the call with the program administrator, call with me, and then you have 2 weeks of calls with a coach and 2 weeks of the group calls with me to really see if you like the program. You have a money-back guarantee anytime up to 14 days of your first call. So you can really try out the program, see if it's right for you, so you can go ahead with confidence. So here's some common questions we get about the program. First, what happens after I purchase? So first thing you'll get is obviously a confirmation of your purchase, and then you'll get set up with a call with the program administrator. So one-on-one call where they're going to get to know you and figure out your hopes, dreams, aspirations, where you're at, your preferences. Like, do you like day game more, night game more, online game? They're going to sit down and do some goal setting exercise with you. They're also going to give you some ideas and guidelines for how to get the most out of the program. After that, you're going to have your one-on-one call with me, and this is where we determine your roadmap. That's where we sit down, I talk to you personally, figure out what your sticking points are, figure out what direction you want to take things in. I'll help you determine the best coach for you to work with, and I'm actually going to plan out your 90 days to give to the coach so that you're really working on the game plan I designed for you. Some people decide, it's rare, but some people do decide to do the call with me at different points, which you can do if you want to do it halfway through or at the end of the program. That's fine as well. Just let us know if you prefer that. After those initial calls, then you're going to have a scheduling link to schedule with your coach whenever you like. You can schedule at your convenience, whatever time works for you. And then you're also going to get invited to the group calls. Couple words on the group calls. First of all, if you can't make the group call live, you're going to get an opportunity to submit your questions beforehand, so your question can still be answered on the call. You're also going to get a recording of the call, so you can go back and watch it at your leisure. And finally, you'll get notes on the call with timestamps and kind of bullet points on the questions, so that if you want to go find your question, you can do that quickly. If there are other questions you find very relevant, you can watch those. Maybe if you don't have time to watch the full webinar, because they can get very long. I answer a lot of questions. So you can pick through that way. And actually what a lot of guys will do is, as they get more advanced, maybe they come into the program as a beginner and then they get to like an intermediate or an advanced level later on, they can go back and watch the older group calls, and they can then look at the questions that were kind of too advanced for them or not relevant yet, and they can actually kind of digest them a second time. So that can be really, really useful. A lot of guys really, really love the notes and find them very, very useful as well. So you're going to do that, and then you're going to have 12 weeks of calls with me, calls with a coach. You're going to get a mission every week. You're going to go do it, and you're going to come back for more and more feedback. Can you buy now and start later? Yes, absolutely you can. In fact, this actually is helpful for us from an administrative point of view, because we're getting a lot of people in at once. So yeah, whenever you want to start, you can. I do encourage you not to wait too long, because you don't want to delay your learning. You don't want to, just put it off and put it off. But yeah, if you're finishing up, finals at school, or you have a big project at work, or you're about to move somewhere where game will be, it'll make more sense for you to game there. There's a lot of common reasons where people may want to start in a few weeks or a month or something like that. You absolutely can. And it obviously makes sense to lock in this deal, because it's such a good deal. So lock in the deal, let us know, and you can pretty much determine your own start date. Are we really closing enrollment? Yes, we are. It's not really a choice. We only have a certain number of coaches, and they only have a certain number of hours in the day. So we kind of are limited to a certain capacity. And I want you to work with my top coaches. So we're not just going to bring on new coaches to handle demand. We have who we have. They're the guys who are tried and true and trusted, and guys that have worked with me for years. So that's who you'll be getting. So for that reason, you don't want to hesitate. Okay, I'm a beginner. Is this right for me? So I'll answer that, but I also want to answer for intermediate and advanced guys. So as a beginner or intermediate or advanced, understand this program is tailored to you, right? We're going to have those introductory calls where we get to know you and design your roadmap around you. On the group calls, we're going to answer your specific questions. These aren't nebulous questions. They're the questions you're asking. So whatever your skill level is, you're going to get something tailored to you. So as a beginner, we'll assign you to a coach that's really, really good with beginners. And we'll have him work with you on missions that I've determined that will structure you from like beginner to intermediate all the way to advanced, right? So that's the idea, is we're going to cater to you. If you're an advanced guy, now all my coaches can handle beginners, intermediates, advanced. They're all really good coaches, but they do specialize in different ways, similarly to how they'd specialize in night game or day game or online game or social media. So in the choice of your coach, in the structure of your program, and in the questions we're answering for you, all of this is designed around you, and all of this will calibrate to the level you're at. And in fact, if you're a beginner, in some ways, it's kind of nice, because you'll be a beginner, you'll get to intermediate, hopefully. You should get to at least intermediate during the program, and then you can go back and look at the intermediate questions and kind of almost do the group calls of the session a second time through, so you may even get that added benefit. Who will be your coach? So this is a determination, like I said, that we make on the introductory call, me and you together, and I'll give you some input into it. So it'll vary depending on your preferences, what type of game you want, what your goals are for girls, what your goals are for life, a little bit determined by your personality, and who I think you'll get along with well. As far as who the coaches are, these are guys, again, that have been with me for years. Some of these guys, just to give you an idea, JP, who you may have actually seen some of his infield on my YouTube channel as well. We call him the day game god, because he's one of the best at day game I've ever seen. One of his claims to fame, just to throw it out there, one time during a live program we had on a Saturday, he actually pulled 3 girls within 6 hours. So he pulled a girl during our day game session, walked out, met another girl on the street, pulled her, slept with her, and then went back out for a night game. So it is a Saturday emergence, so we had day game and night game. So he came out for the night game session, wasn't planning on he's just partying with the guys and just, reveling in his victories or whatever. And then he happened to meet another girl and took another girl home. So he actually slept with 3 girls in 6 hours, which is pretty crazy. And that's only one of many stories I can tell about him. Another one of my coaches, Matt, he basically got his game to a point and systematized his game to a point he was actually living with my girlfriend and my cameraman at the time, like staying on their couch. And my cameraman was coming home from working with me night after night and seeing a different hot Latina girl, which is like exactly Matt's type, like just super hot Latina girl, leaving Matt's couch night after night after night at roughly the same time of night. Because he had just figured out a game plan for like, I go to the club at this time, I meet the girl at this time, I pull the girl at this time, she's leaving by this time. And it's just like literally like almost like Groundhog Day of hot girls for him. So very, very good. Really good with getting you out of your head, getting peak performance, but also all the way up to getting the type of girls you really want as an advanced guy. Also, he recently had a video on my YouTube channel as well if you want to check him out too. And there's a few other of my other coaches. They're at a similar level. They've all worked with me for years, and they specialize in different things. I'll give you one more. Garrett's another one of my coaches. He's really good at a lot of things, including night game, but one thing that he really, really stands out at is like texting and social media game. He'll have girls that he's barely met even for just a few minutes. And the next time he flies back into their city with us, he'll have them picking him up at the airport to go basically take him home and sleep with him. And this is off of minimal effort. This is off of girls just watching his social media and getting like a deeper and deeper crush on him from his social media. So he's really, really good in terms of that. And I know that's an area a lot of guys work on as well. So that's just kind of a sampling. Again, that's like half the coaches I have for the program. So there's more where that came from, but just gives you an idea of kind of who you'd be working with. How fast can you expect results? Well, the answer to this is it depends on you. And it depends on you in a couple different ways. First of all, it depends how much effort you're going to put in. Now, if you just expect to like show up at the calls, not do your missions, not do your homework, not bring questions, you're not going to get results anywhere near as fast as if you fully participate and buy into the program. So that's number one. How fast you get results will give you all the resources you need to get results, but it's still on you. You still have to step up and make it happen in the field. The second one, though, how fast you can expect results, depends on what your level is. So if you're a beginner, it's fairly easy for a beginner to make huge leaps and see huge progress on a weekly or even daily level at first, right? Because the sticking points you're working on are not that complicated, and there's a lot. You're doing so much wrong, it's easy to improve quickly. Let's just say it that way. As you get more advanced, the tweaks you're going to make will be smaller percentages of your game. You're not going to be overhauling your whole game on a weekly basis as an advanced guy. You're going to be mostly doing what you're already doing well and then adding some tweaks. But the funny thing when you're advanced is even though the actual percent improvement in your game won't be as fast, the percent improvement in your results might be. It might be actually faster. And the reason for that is that the approaches where you're not achieving a result, you're probably almost achieving a result. So even though you're only getting 5% better, that 5% may be the difference between a miss and a hit, or a failure and a pull. And so funny enough, your results in an advanced level might actually get exponentially faster even than at a beginner level, even though your progress in game, it's impossible to keep up that same level of overall progress. But again, a lot of it's going to depend on you. You can't expect to just show up and it's a magic pill. You still do have to put in the work. We're just going to give you all the resources to make that work more efficient. What if I want a girlfriend or a wife? Great, wonderful. I think that's admirable. And actually, we have coaches that do focus a little bit more on relationships and girlfriends and that kind of stuff. But also, if you want a girlfriend or wife, I assume you just don't want any random girlfriend or wife. You probably want the best girlfriend or wife you can get, in which case you're going to want to talk to a number of girls and have some to choose from. You don't want to just choose the first girl that will have you. And so the process for getting a high-quality girlfriend or a high-quality wife is not that dissimilar from getting success with girls in general. All right? And so what I really suggest is get an abundance of girls, and then when you choose your girlfriend or your wife, it'll be from a place of having so much fun. I'm seeing so many amazing girls, but this girl really still stands out, and then you're going to know that you picked the right one. You're going to find one you'll be happy with. Also, the process of having abundance and learning a skill set is going to help you to have a better relationship with your girlfriend or wife because you're not going to be coming from a place of scarcity. You're not going to be failing her shit tests and being browbeaten and these different things. So I look at game as a tool, and that tool can be used for having a harem of girls, sleeping with a different girl every night, or for getting a girlfriend or a wife that is of a high caliber that you really, really desire. What happens during the weekly calls? I talked about this actually just a little bit earlier, but essentially what will happen is we'll log on. I'm going to have a bunch of questions that have been asked before the call, so I'm going to go through those pre-webinar questions, right? I'll go through those, answer every single one of those, and then the guys who are on the call can ask me any follow-up questions you want. You can ask me, keep asking. I stay on the call until we answer them all. Sometimes, if it goes really long and I have a ton of calls, I'll do an intermission and we'll do a second call for the week. So we have had weeks where we've actually had 2 calls just because there were so many questions. But I'll take all the pre-asked questions, the pre-webinar questions first. Then I'll take live questions on the call, follow-ups, those kind of things. And then you'll get the recording soon after. I think it comes out within 12 hours. I think certainly within 24 hours, you'll get that recording out to you. And then the notes soon after, so you can go through and digest it and optimally go through and study the answers from that call. And of course, with the notes, you can go back and look at previous calls as well. All right. So that's what we'll pretty much do in terms of the structure for those weekly calls. All right. So again, that's the 90-day program in a nutshell. For those of you who have already taken me up on this offer, I just want to say a special thank you. I can't wait to meet you. I can't wait to do that call with you, and I can't wait to see your progress. For those of you who are still on the fence, feel free to email me directly, todd@toddvdating.com. And yes, that really is my email address, and yes, I will answer you personally. Again, this is a limited time offer. Now, with that said, thank you for attending. No matter what, I hope you take action. See you out there.